All right, what's up, guys? Happy Monday to everybody. My name is Jason Flame, and we're on the Master Motivation Podcast, video slash whatever you want to call it. But we have an amazing guest today. I was so excited when I first thought of the idea. This is one of the people that were in my top 10 that had to be on this interview. So I want to welcome John Hackleman from the pit. How are you today, sir?
Fantastic, thank you.
Dude,
Whew.
listen.
I'm jazzed now.
Well, this may have to be a two-part interview because, typically we go like 45 minutes most on these, 30, 45 minutes, but I feel like we're going to go to the time and still need some more time. But just to remind everybody, and thank you everybody that's tuned in and watching with us live here today. And when you watch later, you'll have a chance to drop comments and ask questions. But, the purpose for this video is I set a goal to interview and highlight a lot of the people that really inspired me, have motivated me, have taught me something in my career. And I got to be honest, when I first met John Hackleman, I was like starstruck. I was nervous. I was like, I didn't know because, you're John Hackleman. You're a celebrity, and you were so welcoming. And we got a chance to work together with Maya. And I was just beyond humbled that someone in your position would listen to me for a little bit, and we had a great time, and we've had a friendship that has formed over the years. And my son has come down to train with you, and I look forward to doing more of that. But I want to just start off. You got a long history and a lot of good stories to tell. You were born in New York and raised
Yes,
in Hawaii. So
yes.
talk a little bit about how long were you in New York before you moved to Hawaii?
I think I was. Can you close the door, please? Thanks. Um, five maybe five. We moved. My dad
Okay.
got a job in Hawaii. So I remember little things about New York, but not much. And then we moved to Hawaii, and bang, bang, it went. It started.
So what was it like? You've told me a lot of like just wow stories about growing up in Hawaii.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Um, it was good and bad, but I think overall, if I had to pick one, it kind of sucked when I was really young because of the kill Howley this and the fuck Howley that. Oh, sorry. Can I cuss at all? Sorry.
Let's keep it PG.
Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, bing. Let's take that back. So it's like it was just kill the Howley. Give me your lunch money. Go back to the mainland. There's kind of a mentality of the locals there versus the blonde people like myself, and so it just wasn't good. It wasn't a pleasant time when I was really young, and to be honest, martial arts made it okay. I mean, without martial arts, it wouldn't have been okay. But with martial arts, it made it very okay, if that
And
makes sense.
when and how did you get started in martial arts? Because you started martial arts in Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah. I I I knew as in grade school, my mom sent me to a nicer grade school, kind of a peaceful grade school where there was more of a mixture of the demographics. And it wasn't a rough school at all. Um, so that in and of itself wouldn't have really helped me prepare for seventh, eighth, ninth grade, etc. Because the intermediate school or the middle school wasn't a nice school, and it was a rough school, very rough. So it wasn't preparing me in this going to a softer grade school to go to this intermediate school. So I got paranoid. I was hearing stories about when I got to seventh grade. So I think right around the beginning of sixth grade, I knew that I had to do something. And my mom, and she wasn't too busy doing her thing, and they already had got divorced, I think, by then, my mom and dad. So so I looked in the yellow pages to find some kind of self-defense training to help myself, in intermediate school. When I look back at it now, thinking I was like, how young I was like, how did I even think of that? I can't even imagine the kids in my class now, doing that, because I'm, teaching kids that age. And I'm like, I can't imagine them looking in the, on Google now, it's Google,
Right.
and calling our gym and then catching the bus to come train, because that's what I did. My mom never took me to the gym, not once. No, she never took me to more martial arts training. I took 2 buses every day, like 5 or 6 days a week for years after that, and until I started driving. So,
So
um,
that started. You said it in like sixth, seventh grade. You
yeah,
called up a
six.
martial arts school, and so you started. Was that when you started in Hawaiian Kempo?
Well, Hawaiian Kempo is a system I made. It was called Kajukenbo, um, and so I kind of went around our neighborhood to a judo gym that I trained with. I trained at for a while, and I checked out a Shotokan gym that was walking distance. They were both walking distance, but I just didn't feel it. And then so I found the yellow pages. I loved the logo in the yellow pages, so I called that one. But it was kind of far away. I mean, it was from, say, Agura to Studio City, or maybe even farther. So um, so it was 2 buses I had to transfer. Um, but I knew I had to do something, and so I took the bus. I went in, and the second I walked in the door, I just knew that, it was like a 400, 500 square foot room that was upstairs. It was above a waterbed place. Remember the waterbeds? It
Yeah,
was, it
yeah.
was above, like, Honolulu waterbed factory. And it was above these stairs. It was on these stairs. You go to the second story, and it was just this really basic, room. It was just a room with a makiwara and a heavy bag. And I remember walking in just thinking, I just remember I knew then I would be there for the forever. I would never leave that place.
And who
Boom,
was
just like
your
that.
and who was your original instructor? Who was the instructor
His
that
name
you were
was
training with?
Walter Godin.
And that's the picture that we have featured in a couple of the different posts,
Yeah,
and the one that you sent me. Okay, so that's your very first instructor, and he's been your instructor, was your instructor all the way through all of your training. And then, so as you grew up, you also got involved in competition yourself, and you
yeah,
started fighting yourself, because a lot of people that I talk to know you as the trainer, but I'm like, you have some great stories about some of the fight teams that you've been a part of and some of your fighting experience. So talk a little bit about your early years of getting involved in fighting.
well, Godin was a super, super tough guy, and in and out of prison, just a rough guy. And he he got me trained. There's a lot of sparring that we did, and a lot of drills, and you know a lot of contact was it was very common. But then I pulled a muscle. I remember I pulled a hamstring muscle. I was like 14, 13 or 14. I like went to him. I was like, I'm having a hard time kicking. I got a pulled muscle or something. So he sent me to a local boxing gym. And he goes, you know what? Just train boxing, for a couple months until your hamstrings better, and then you come back. And I was like, all right. So he sent me to Palolo Boxing Gym, which is like right in the middle of Palolo housing, which is a low income housing project. And it was an eye opener. And I went there. I saw the instructor. His name is Peter Jung. And if you guys remember Ronald John, he fought in the UFC a bunch. That was his great uncle. But anyway, so I went in. I was like, hey, I want to do some training. So he started teaching me some boxing, and The next thing I knew, I'm fighting in tournaments, and then next thing I know, I'm winning the Golden Gloves. And so boxing became a very important part of my training, even though I still would go to Godine school every day when my hamstring healed up. I started boxing too. So I started competing in boxing. Like I said, it was diamond belt, Golden Gloves, all that stuff when I was so that also helped me because I'm the kid now. I'm a little blonde kid that most locals are used to picking on, but now I'm the Golden Glove champ of the state, so I'm not getting picked on anymore now. My confidence level is super high. Local, Hawaiians are very. It's a very tough culture, and they respect that more than money or brains. They respect toughness. So being the Golden Glove champion, I never got picked on again, and my confidence skyrocketed, and that pretty much took away all of that. I'm going to be picked on. Somebody's going to take my lunch money. That never happened again to this day, except for my wife.
And so you move from your traditional into boxing and started competing a little bit more. Talk about some of the teams that you were a part of, and some of the I know there's some people that you trained with and worked with along the way. Talk a little
Yeah.
bit about those.
Okay. So training. So boxing, and then I went back and forth since I was with Godine. So I would do some kickboxing tournaments if they came around, and then we started the first no holds barred tournament was in Hawaii. It was called the World Series of Martial Arts, and it was kind of an anything goes match. Back in 1976, I was 16, and so I was training at the boxing gym, training with Godine, and then Benny the Jet showed up in town, Benny the Jet Yakides. And I'm like 16 years old, and he has such a different level of fighting. The boxing guys, he wanted a training partner because he had this no holds barred fight coming up, and I was the only guy at the boxing gym that could also kick. So I was like, I'll spar with you, and so I did for that fight. So I sparred them for the week, and I ended up entering that tournament as well, the Anything Goes match tournament. And I got to know Benny a little bit. So that's how I met Benny the Jet Yakides. So fast forward now, when I got out of the Army and I moved to California, I looked him up again and I started training with him. So I trained with the Jet Center. But I wanted to mainly be boxing. So I went to Muhammad Ali's boxing gym in Santa Monica, California, and started training there as well. So I was kind of doing both for a while. That's it.
Well, and so what led you? So what led you to California? Because we'll start getting into how the pit was started. Um,
I,
you came out of the Army, and did you choose California for a particular reason? Was it because you wanted to come and train?
yeah. Well, when I boxed in the Army, I made the All Army boxing team. So I thought I was a lot better. I actually thought I was a lot better than I was. But so when I got out of the Army, I had a job set up in Hawaii, cop. I knew the police, police chief. My dad knew him. That was what I was planning to do. But I thought, man, I'm gonna try the boxing thing first. So I can't do that in Hawaii. So where else can you go? I decided to go to L.A. So I moved to L.A. Right out of the Army, and I just started looking around for a job because I already had 2 kids. So I started looking for a job, an apartment, and a fight. And I found all 3 within a week. I walked up and down near because my mom moved to Venice already. So I walked up and down the boardwalk, and I found a job at the Pritikin Longevity Center as a cook. I found a gym right there on Main Street in Santa Monica, the Muhammad Ali boxing gym, and I got a fight. So I ended up staying in LA for quite a while, and I never did go back to Hawaii to live.
And what year? Around what year was that you moved to California?
80, like 83,
83.
1983. Yeah.
And so within the next couple of years is when the pit was born, right?
Yeah.
So talk about some of the beginning of how the pit started, and what made you want to get into now owning a martial arts school.
Well, I got out. I did my boxing. I did okay, and then I got my light. I got a little trouble in my boxing, and I got my license suspended for a year. For it's really weird. It was drug use. Okay, it was drug use, and let me tell you the drug. This is what's so weird. I broke a knuckle training, and I had a fight come up. I couldn't pull out of the fight because that's one of the ways that I was helping, support my kids. I got 2 kids. I got no money, so I couldn't pull out of the fight. But my hand really hurt. So my trainer, had a connection where he got some Novocaine, which is actually lidocaine, and he injected it in the bathroom before the fight, and somebody saw it. He injected my knuckle with Novocaine because it was broken. So that was and somebody, so my license got taken away for that. It wasn't like steroids or anything. It was like Novocaine. But anyway, so I knew Petey Cunningham because we were training together. So he was like, hey, if you can't box right now, why don't you try kickbox? Try to go pro kickboxing. I go, I've had some kickboxing matches in Hawaii. He goes, yeah, try it because there's no commission. So you're not suspended from kickboxing. There was no commission back then. So I said, all right. So I started kickboxing. We became roommates, me and Sugarfoot, and we became really good friends. So he started trying to box, and I tried to do some kickboxing, which I did okay. I won a couple of, minor titles, WKA, and some professional kickboxing titles along the way. But I was never that great. I was good. I hit hard. I kicked pretty hard. I was tough, but I just wasn't really. I was never a Sugarfoot or a Benny, right? But I was just a tough guy. And now all of a sudden, I'm working. I got the kids, and I know that I can't just do this. Isn't going to support the way I want to be supported. So I started going to school. I became a registered nurse, and so I'm still fighting a little here and there. But I knew that my days were limited fighting. So built a little gym in my backyard, mainly for me, just so I could train. If I worked the graveyard shift and sometimes I couldn't make it to the gym, so I had a place to train. Next thing I know, my buddies are training there, guys from work, and then next thing I know, we named it the Pit, and next thing I know, everybody had pit tattoos.
Well, it is a pretty unique logo, right? And all of you that have seen the pit logo before. Hey, real quick, just while we have some viewers watching, I'm sure you guys may have some questions. I'm just kind of letting him tell a lot of stories, but if you have specific questions, things you want to hear about, please comment and let us know. Let us know you're here. Let us know you have questions, and we'll get into that. So you started the Pit, right? And how did you even come up with the name the Pit? Like, where did that come from? Where did the logo come from?
The logo and the name are so different. When I opened it, right, so there's some guys from work are training, and the next thing I know, there's guys that heard about it, like fighters and wannabe fighters. I had one Golden Glove guy. I started getting calls. Hey, I heard you have this gym in your backyard. I want to train there. Next thing I know, I'm having competitive guys training there, as well as people from the hospital that I work with. And it started getting to be kind of a cultish type thing, and one guy is like, it was like 400 square feet. It was in my backyard. We did some of the training outside in the yard, and some of it in under in the little building. We had it built just for that. And some guy goes, man, this gym is tiny, man. It's like a little pit. That's where the pit came. There's nothing else. He was actually one of the nurses at the hospital I work with. He goes, this place is like a pit, man. So they started calling it the Pit. So there's nothing fancy there. And then one of my students, Rick Metzler, the Pit Malibu, right? Um, he's been training me since he's 18, 19. He started in 1985. And his mother, his stepmother drew the logo. She thought it fit what we were doing. So she's the one that drew that logo. And
Awesome.
next thing I know, I took it down to a tattoo place and we got it tattooed and the logo was born. That was probably 1986.
Okay. And so so the pit was created 1985, is that right? That was when you officially opened it.
Yeah.
And Rick was one of the original guys. This was in the
Original.
San Fernando Valley,
Woodland
right?
Hills. Woodland Hills. Yeah.
And then from there, Rick has his school out in Malibu. Still has a school, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then how did you transition from the pit in Woodland Hills, moving out to now we're in Arroyo Grande?
Yeah. So I was doing the pit, doing the nursing, met another nurse. We ended up getting married. She had a couple kids. I had a couple kids. And my career was pretty much done as a fighter, but I was still starting to train guys more now. So I went from fighter to training and fighting people. Now I was starting to train myself less and fighters more. So we're doing that, but then I wasn't going to fight as much. So we decided, why are we even in LA anymore? We're raising the kids. She was from up here, where we are now. So she was like, let's get out of LA. So we bought a house up in Arroyo Grande. We moved to Arroyo Grande, her kids, my kids, me and her. And then within, we got divorced really quick after we moved up here. But I moved up here, got a couple acres, 3. And then the first thing I did to the property was build a gym. And I knew that I was going to start training people up here. So I built a gym in the backyard of 3 acres, and the pit was created. And I started going around to different karate schools and telling people, if you guys want to spar, come up. I want to start training people. And next thing you know, I got a call from some guy that wanted to spar me, and it was Chuck. And next thing I know, we're on a plane to Japan, and the pit is the pit.
So the pit was created, the second version, right? Out of, so original pit was in Woodland Hills, and then you move up to Arroyo Grande. You kind of build the new pit in your backyard, and then
Yeah,
you eventually open your school now that's on Main Street,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
How long after? How long did that take to get that off the ground?
I moved up here in '90, and I started working as a nurse full time. Night shift in the prison, and then teaching guys during the day. I was training a bunch of cops, a bunch of people from the prison, and then Chuck and those guys, and then we got more guys like Chuck who wanted to fight, not just train. So it became kind of a fight gym and just a hardcore training gym, and that started in 1990, and then I opened a main gym because I decided I just didn't have enough time to work as a nurse anymore because I was getting really busy in that backyard gym. So I opened a main brick and mortar gym in 2001. That's when I opened the main one. So basically 20 years ago. Yeah.
Right. And so let's go back, because a lot of people love to hear about Chuck Liddell too, and how did Chuck actually start his martial arts training with you, or did he already have training coming to you?
Yeah, he had some kind of like traditional Japanese karate, kind of like a Shotokan based karate. Um, and he was a wrestler. So I mean, just had to turn the basic kicks, had to teach him a lot of more kickboxing, more effective kicks for sport, and then the hands, instead of punching like this, had to teach him more hands. But he had the takedowns, he had the takedown defense, he had the power with his straight punch. I mean, his main punch was that power punch. So that's what he had. He wanted to learn how to. The way he put it was the first time we sparred. He said, "Will you teach me? Would you start training me and teach me how to really fight?" He wants to really learn how to fight, and that's what I gave him my card, and I said, "Yeah, sure, come to my gym." And he was there the next day and came every day after that until he won titles and whatever.
Yes. So it all started in your backyard, right? You guys pretty much him wanting just to spar with you went to training with you, and then of
And then
course he
to
had the
fight.
career that he had, right?
Yeah.
Um, what was it like for you? Because was there anybody else before Chuck that you did some pro fights for, or getting into, the UFC?
Well, Rick was a fighter. Rick Metzler. He was an undefeated kickboxer. Actually, they were actually looking at him for K1 before he decided he didn't want to fight anymore because he started having kids. Um, and then I had a guy who fought in the Golden Gloves back in Woodland Hills. Tony Fry, Tony the Terrible, we called him, and he trained there because the connection there was the Sagebrush Cantina, right? So even though I was working full time as a nurse and training the guys in the backyard, I got a call from the owner of the Sagebrush Cantina who asked me if I would, head up the security there, to work because I guess it's kind of a rowdy club and this and that. So I started working there, and some of my guys worked there too. So it became kind of the pit hangout, and a bunch of the pit guys worked there. We had like Letterman's jackets with a pit on it and stuff, and we worked at the Sagebrush. So I met guys there that wanted to fight. So I met Tony the Terrible, who I met him at the Sagebrush, and he had a few fights with me. And then Rick had a few fights with me. And there's a couple of amateur boxers, and kickboxers, but nothing like Chuck or those guys. It was that level, nothing at that level.
And so what was it like getting involved as a coach, a trainer in the UFC? What was that from the very beginning to now? It's so different. What was it like in the early years?
Uh, it was very similar actually. Dana's carved out, the way he was going to do things, and except for a couple of people like that aren't there as much. A couple of familiar faces that aren't backstage as much, like Bert, and Donna, who both, Donna still works there, but she's way behind the scenes now. She used to be one of the main people you'd see, and then Bert would be the one. We're rolling. He'd be the behind the scenes, manager. He'd manage the fighters, their weigh-ins, and then the locker rooms, and then all the way when they came out to the cage, he was the guy. And they're not there anymore. But other than that, man, it's really, I mean, forget the COVID thing, but besides that, it's really not that different. Like I said, Dana made a blueprint for it, and he's stuck to that, for quite a while now, and it's working. And I think he's a genius.
What were some of your favorite fights? That Chuck had.
Let's see, Babalu 1, Randy 2, um, Randy 2, Bob. That's my two favorite fights. Babalu 1 and Randy 2. There you go. That's my two favorite.
And what were so unique about those fights? Like what did you love so much about it?
I don't know. They just stick out in my head. I remember Randy 2. That's actually where I met Tony Robbins. I became close to Tony Robbins because there was a lot of planning going on, because after Randy beat Chuck, it's like I realized, oh, Chuck, we just can't knock everybody out, and just you got to plan a strategy around someone like Randy Couture. So I started like planning and planning. I got this planner, and I started doing like planning when we're going to do this, work on this. I watch videos, and I say, well, this is what I take notes, and it was probably the first time that I got that studious over a fight, and so that's why that fight was my favorite, probably because everything worked. I mean, I saw something and I took notes of what Randy was doing. I was like, oh shit, if he does this, Chuck will do this. So I started working with Chuck on this and how to do this, and I ended up working to the like the letter.
Yeah.
And then so that made me I like that one. And then the Babalu kick, we came up with this Babalu kick because we noticed the way he would come in for a takedown, and I knew that he would run right into Chuck's shin if he did it this way. So we worked on this thing called the Babalu kick over and over and over and over, and then boom, it worked like boom. Um, so I like that, and I remember those days. Those days, man, were just you know the first two Tito fights. Just those days were just crazy. There's just like it went from training in my backyard and meeting at a little restaurant called Pappy's here, and I mean that's what we do. We train, meet at Pappy's. That was it. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're on a private plane, and there's tens of thousands of people screaming, and it was like, I never use this word because I think it's stupid, but I'll say it anyway. It was surreal.
Was it, yeah, coming from a kind of what sounds like a very humble background, being in the, being in the spotlight. Was that super overwhelming? And did that change just the whole attitude of training at all, or did it amp it up even more?
It didn't really change it. Nothing changed back home. Like the way we trained, the people that came training with us now, all of a sudden, a lot of people wanted to come to the pit, and it got me a lot more fighters there. But the training was the exact same thing. We just tell people. Chuck actually said, everything's the same right now. The only difference is, instead of driving up in $150 broken down motorcycle, I drive up in a $300,000 Ferrari, and instead of keeping time on a $150 watch, John now keeps time with a $14,000 watch. That's Chuck used to make that like compare, but he said everything else is exactly the same.
That's awesome.
So I mean the old school training. We're still doing that, right? You've come
Yeah.
up. There's
Yep.
nothing fancy or new age about the way we train or anything like that. So
Well, here's a question. Kevin Kowalczyk wants to know what's the best advice you can give for fighters.
live clean, train hard, um, be well rounded, focus on your strengths, but work on your weaknesses. And don't forget, the conditioning is just as important as any other factor going in. It's just as important as grappling, striking, or anything else. Conditioning is just as important. Some people overlook that one.
Yeah, watching you train your team, I was not necessarily amazed, but the conditioning is definitely a huge factor. You're just a huge advocate for hardcore training, and
Yeah.
and really putting in the time. You talk all the time about the wheelbarrows, which we haven't gotten to do yet, but those are I know we didn't get to do it last time, but we will. So, and I knew you're gonna. I knew the live clean. What is it? Live clean, fight dirty.
Well, it's live clean. Yeah, live clean, fight dirty was the original one, but I say live clean, train hard. And for my street guys, for my martial arts Hawaiian Kempo system guys, I say live clean, train hard, fight dirty. For my sport fighters, I don't want you to fight dirty. I want you to live clean and train hard, though.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
A little different. Well, talk a little bit. So from there, you were talking about the Randy Chuck fights. You had an opportunity to be on the Ultimate Fighter as a coach as well. What was twice, right? What was it? What was
Yeah.
that experience like? What was it like living in the house? Or did you live in the house with the
No,
guys? And
no, the coaches don't live in.
no,
We went there a lot. It showed me a lot. It showed me just how much is real and how much isn't real, and so much of that isn't real. It's edited and it's choreographed and stuff like that, and it's manipulated. I mean, so like just for instance, stocking their cabinets with hard liquor, and encouraging them to be drunk, encouraging, things that look good on TV. I mean, behind the scenes, they're encouraging that shit. So, and there was that. The fact that, and my mom, rest her soul, she got angry because she thought I made millions on that show, and it was like, why don't you buy your sister a house? Like, what are you talking about? Well, you just were on a TV show. You probably made $5 million. The fighters make nothing. The coaches we make like for 6 weeks of hard work, like all day work. We made like $1,500 or something. It's like crazy. So you don't make the money that people think you're making, but it was a great experience. The first one I got to meet, Court McGee, and I started training him right from there. He was on my team on the house. And then the second one was with it was the first one was, I loved it. The second one I didn't really love it. I loved the one with Chuck, with Court and Chuck, and then we had Brad Tavares, who just won this weekend. And that one was fun. Everybody got along, both sides. It was it was a great experience. But the second one wasn't quite as, that didn't really relate to fighting. I mean, as much. I mean, it was great to be there, meet the guys, see the guys, but it was a reality show more than it was what real fighting is about. So, I mean, I just took it for that.
well, the first one you did was that wasn't the first one, was it?
Mm. No, it was nine. It was 11, season 11.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, Chuck
So
Chuck asked me to do the first one, and I said no. There's no way I'm going to Vegas to do that. And then the second one, he asked me to do. I was like, no. But he like, come on, man, I'll fly you out there. Now he's Chuck now. I'll fly you out there, and then you just we pick the team. Then I'll fly you back home. Then I'll fly you back to work a corner here and there. Just make an appearance. I was like, all right, shit, I'll do it then. I didn't leave. He flew back and forth. I stayed there in Vegas for 6 weeks. It was a living hell. I did not get to leave. He pretended I was the one that was going to leave. I was there the whole time, every day of those 6 weeks. And Chuck was like in and out. He was like, he barely was there because
well, so
he
you
was
got
Chuck. He was already Chuck.
right. So you got to meet Court McGee at that time,
Yeah.
and then you also started training Glover.
Well, no, Glover way before that.
Oh, Glover.
Glover started training me in like 2005 when he fought my guy at the Tachi Palace in one of the really low level fights. It was my guy's first fight, and it was Glover's first fight. So my guy beat Glover, and then I went into the dressing room after because I was so impressed with the way Glover fought. I just wanted to go in there and say, bro, I wanted to try to reassure him that that the guy he fought, even though he's never fought before, he was really good. So don't be discouraged. Go out there. You're going to be a great fighter. So I went in there to tell him that, and then he asked me if I started training him. I was like, yeah. Where do you live? He's like, Connecticut. I was like, all right, that's a bit of a stretch. So he moved out here right after that. So to pay the rent, because he lived in my guest house, to pay the rent, he taught all my kids' classes. I mean, you've met Tanner, my stepson, right? He remembers Glover was his instructor coming up. Glover taught all the kids classes and a couple of the adult classes. And so Glover was there just teaching and training with Chuck. And then next thing you know, he beat Sokaju. And then boom, now we got Glover. But Glover's been with me since 2004 or 5. Yeah.
So very early on, very early
Yeah.
on. So you and you've just trained, a bunch of others. So give a shout out to some of your other guys. Some of the guys that are training now. Do you have some guys that are coming up that potentially are going to fight in the UFC?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't, that's up to them if they're going to fight in the UFC. But I mean, I've had guys like Tim Kennedy started with us, right? You know, he's from here. I mean, so he actually really started here. I mean, because he's from here. His dad's a cop in this town, and then he joined the army. That's why he's been traveling all over. He's still in the army. I've had guys like Shields. We've had Jake Shields. We've had the Diaz brothers train with us. We've had almost everyone from AKA, including the heavyweight champion of the world training out here. We've had just a bunch. What's the guy? Who's the guy that fought Michael Bisping? The guy from Santa Cruz. Luke
Okay,
Rockhold.
there you go.
Yeah. So I mean, there's been a lot of guys, and then I've cross trained with a lot of Laborio's guys at American Top Team. I've trained with Tiago Alves. I've trained with all those guys. So I've had the honor and the privilege of training with a lot of great guys, and I've worked their corner. I worked Matt Linland, who won the silver medal in the Olympics for Greco-Roman. I've trained him for probably like, I don't know, 10 of his fights. He has to come out here and stay here. He was one of the originators for Team Quest.
Right.
So that's why it was kind of awkward when Chuck first fought Randy, because we had a connection with Team Quest, and I was training Matt. So then Chuck fought Randy. I was like, they've been training together a lot. And they're really, I mean, they're good friends too. So, and they still are, by the way. But so I've had that, and then I get to work with these guys. So I get to show them some stuff. Now I got guys that are teaching me wrestling. I got the top level guys showing me how to defend the takedown, how to get a takedown if you're a striker, how to clinch up. Then I have Sammy Henson, who won the silver medal in the freestyle Olympics, and so I started training with him, and he's teaching me different takedowns. And I just so lucky. I had Laborio come out here, Ricardo Laborio, showing me escapes from the bottom. Mario Spari, is working with me on stuff, and I've been so lucky that I can combine my striking with all these great grapplers and great strikers. I mean, let's not, all the kickboxers I've been working with. But they've been able to refine my system, and I took it from Kajukenbo and I created Hawaiian Kempo. That's where I came up with Hawaiian Kempo. It was just I was going to take out everything kata-ish or kata at all, and I'm going to make it all MMA and the street. Just those two things, MMA and the street, right? But and I named it Hawaiian Kempo, and I've just been plugging it in ever since.
And so, I mean, most people think that when you talk about MMA and the street, that they're so far apart. But how do you describe that they work together so well? I mean, because obviously MMA has rules and the street does not. Um,
So
how
do you think they're so how do I think they're different, or how do I think they're the same?
Well, I guess the question would be both. How do they fit so well together? Because when people hear, well, it's a sport, but you don't have a cage and you don't have
Yeah.
rules in the street. I mean, it's obvious that there's going to be different rules in pretty much any situation, right?
Yeah.
But how you train people, I mean, takedown defense is takedown defense almost regardless, right?
Not
So
really. But yeah.
no, not really.
Yeah, because I'll give you a perfect example. Like this week or this quarter, we have new blocks of techniques every quarter, and we rotate them. We have body lock, right? A body lock defense. Okay, we have it from the front and from the back. And from the back, it's pretty much exactly the same in the street than it is in the cage, right? You can't use small joint manipulation in the cage, right? So like if somebody's body locking you from the back, right, you're not allowed to reach in and pull out, get the pinky and pull it back. You can't do that in MMA. You're not
Right.
allowed to. It's in the rules. In the street, you can't do it by the rule of no. You don't have any fine motor skills. You just don't, because there's too much adrenaline pumping. Somebody grabs you from the back, you're gonna protect. You're gonna die. You're thinking you're gonna die. You don't have the adrenaline. You could never find a pinky. You only have gross motor skills, right? Nobody's that calm in a street fight. They are in the cage because that's their sport and they know they're not going to die, right? So that defense is the same. We use this and we push it to the back pocket, right? And we get out. It's a hip thing, and we call it drop and pop. But from the front now, right? Somebody body locks us from the front. As soon as we get our hips away and we're not in fear of going up in the air, right? In the cage, now we work on underhook. You always want to get underhooks when the fight's here. You never want to do underhooks when the fight's here. So we work for underhooks in the cage, right? You want to over under, stuff like that. But in the street, as soon as your hips are clear, your hands come up now because they're under your arms. Your hands come up and your thumbs go right into their eyes, and they will let go. So it's a different defense for the street and the cage, right? The rear body lock defense is exactly the same. The front is entirely different. And the same goes for mount escapes, right? Boom, you buck forward, you make sure you break the posture, you want to upa or a foot escape, whatever you want to get out. In the street, you pull them towards you and you try to bite their cheek right off to get them off you. You don't do that in the cage. But you still want to break their posture the same. You still want to protect yourself the same. So there are a lot of differences and a lot of similarities. A left hook's a left hook. Bing. Right? A double leg's a double leg. Boom. But now the takedown defense gets a little tricky. Plus, when they're doing a double leg, say you're posting their head, right? In the street, you're going for an eye. In the sport, you're going for the crossface. So it's a different. So there's differences and a lot of similarities. The main similarity is you want to fight to the end. You want to fight to win. Okay. Now the difference is in the street, that means going home safely to your family. In the cage, that means winning a UFC title. Those are your two. The goals are different. How they get there is very similar along the way. Conditioning, drilling, repetitive routines. It's the same, but there are some differences. No biting, no eye gouging. There's a referee. There's concrete. So there's a lot of differences. And I try to pick those out, and I try to see the differences and the similarities when I watch the UFC, because I'm not going to have my guys get in a street fight to see what works, but I will have my guys work in a cage to see what'll work in the street. But it doesn't go the other way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Gotcha. No, that there you go. That's a perfect description of everything I was looking
And
for.
that's Hawaiian Kempo. That is Hawaiian Kempo right there. That's why I created Hawaiian Kempo, because we have the opportunity in Kajukenbo. I don't know if you know it or not. It was made for the street, right? But guys would practice it by going into bars and beating up white guys in the street, right? So that whole system was made just to beat up on white guys. I don't know if you know that or not. So
I
me
didn't.
me me training that art is kind of ironic that art made me tougher when it was made against me. But 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 the whole, I took it and I want to use it for the street, but we can't practice in the street. We're going to end up dead or arrested.
Right.
So I started using, the testing grounds was the ring, was the cage, was the mat. And I would try to practice it there. Once in a while, I'll admit this, I'm not proud of it. We would practice some techniques at the sagebrush when we had one of the guys in the back. But that's neither here nor there. That's a whole different story.
Old days.
Yeah.
Let's switch topics a little bit as we get near the end here. You talked a little bit about Tony Robbins, and we talked about it
Yeah.
before we started. Because my question would be, who is someone that has motivated you, inspired you, who has worked with you, and I know that he's someone that you'd like to talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
When did that relationship start, and how has that continued over the years?
Um, it started Randy too, because I I had one of his planners. I'm a planner guy, and I was using some stuff from his planner, and then there was an interview right after the fight from like Full Contact Fighter or something, one of the magazines, and they were asking me some of the differences with Randy 1 versus Randy 2. And I was talking about planning strategies. And I mentioned, and I never watched Tony Robbins perform or anything like that. I didn't have any of his videos. I just had that one planner. It was just like a planner, it's like a planner. And so I mentioned him, that I used his planner to help me plan things. And I got a call, like a few days later, it was by his assistant. Yeah, Mr. Hackleman, Tony Robbins, we read what you wrote about him. He's really happy about that. He wants you to come to be a guest at one of his events. I was all right. So they got me to, he had one in LA. So I was like a VIP at one of his events in LA. And they introduced me and we talked. And then it was kind of weird because we talked, but he's Tony Robbins, I called him Banana Hands the first time I met him because of Shallow Hal. What's up, Banana Hands? He's such a nice guy. But then he got me on this VIP thing where he gave me a coach, a life coach, right? And that was part of the package. And he gave that to me as, just as a gift. So I had this life coach for like, I don't know, 6 months or a year or something. But I didn't really use a life coach, but we became friends. I became friends with this life coach, and really good guy. We talk on the phone, and then I got a little depressed when Chuck started losing, and there's some other things going on at the gym, and so I was going through first time in my life I wasn't feeling good, and so I get a call one night, and it was a block call, and I answer it, and it was Tony Robbins, and I was like, I guess my life coach guy had talked to Tony and told him that, oh yeah, John's kind of depressed right now. He's going through some shit. And I barely know Tony, but he calls me. He spent 1 hour, I timed it, 1 hour on the phone with me, talking to me about what was going on, yelling at me, cussing at me, being there for me, just talking to me. And I was like, this guy's amazing, So we became friends. And then I went to his house when I was in Florida, and we had another long. This was an hour and a half session where Tony Robbins and me sat in his backyard, and he gave me strategies about how to fill some of the voids in my life. It was right at the end of Chuck's career, and it was amazing. It motivated me, and not just motivated me, but taught me techniques that he's changed my life more than anyone since Godin. As a man, he's changed my life more than that, and he's done it out of the goodness of his heart. I got nothing to give Tony Robbins, So we've remained friends, It's like I asked, I wanted him to be on our podcast. Like I texted him, I was like, and I told my partner, my podcast partner, yeah, he'll probably text me back in a couple weeks and say he's too busy. Man, like 2 minutes later, he texted me back. So he goes, sure, when? So that's the kind of guy that he is. He's a great human being. I mean, what does he feed 1 billion people a year? I mean, he gives so much, and people think he's like a motivational guy, but he doesn't motivate. He strategizes. Like he told me how to. I was having problems training these guys and trying to run my gym, and Chuck's retiring. I'm tired of training fighters, but I got a family life too, and he gave me these strategies that I still do every day, to this day, and that was 10 years ago almost. And he's that guy. He's a strategy minded guy that just like could figure shit out. I don't know how.
Well, let's finish with this then. If people that are watching, because there's still several people here watching now, and people that will watch later, what are a couple key strategies that you would motivate or inspire others that are kind of on the edge of reaching reach the next level, or try something new, and they just can't get there. What is your strategy and advice to that?
Huh. Wow, that's a good one. I think that just like training for the fight or being a fight, if you want to be a fighter or in life, I think um, I think you should focus on your strengths. I think that's going to get you the farthest. Like I don't think if Ben Askren, wanted to be a striker, I don't think he would get him very far. So I think you should always focus on your strengths, and then right, whatever it is, whether it's running a gym, whether it's training for a fight, whether it's whatever what other job it is, then I think you should work on your weaknesses. That's why I think that's so important. Like my biggest weakness is marketing for my gym. So I got to work on that, but that's not my biggest strength. So I'm going to focus on the way I teach class, the way I motivate people, the way I come up with. I think I'm a very creative guy that comes up with techniques and punches and different ways to win a fight. So that's my strength. So I'm going to focus on that, but I am going to work on ways to promote more. So I'm okay with like putting in little things with the videos to help market them more, build up my social standing or motivate social media, and run the gym better. So that would be and I think that goes for the running the gym or training for a fight. I don't think you should just abandon your strengths and like, go with go out of your comfort zone, Yeah, spend a little time out there, but nobody's going to spend a lot of time out of their comfort zone. They're just not. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'll use Ben Askren again. Like if you wanted him to just train striking, he's just not going to go far. He will get a little better, so you should work on his striking a little more. But if he was focused on his striking, he would never get where he is, right? So I think focusing on those God-given talents that you have and those God-given, you know, you know, drills or techniques or whatever to get you there is your strengths, and then work on your weaknesses, but focus on your strengths.
Well, I love that advice, because I know that people that I work with and coach and consult with, it's always, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What can I fix? What more can I do? And we lose sight of all the things that we've done good. And sometimes, I found in my business over the years, there's been things that I was really, really good at, and for whatever reason, we stopped doing it because we were so focused on trying to do something different or focus on, other areas, when what we did really well is what got us to where we are. So you're right. I think that that's really key to really focus in on the strengths and, continue
Do you
little by
think
little.
Maya? That would be good for Maya, right? That would be good for Maya to put out more. You know what I mean? because Maya's, I mean, their strengths. I mean, it's such a good organization. Century, we love Century. I know we do.
Oh yeah.
But um, yeah, but sometimes when I'm being told to do stuff, it's stuff I'm not going to ever do. Uh, I mean, all the way, but I'll work on it a little bit, and that's where this word comes in that my wife hates, but I love delegating. Right, the stuff that you're
Hmm.
never going to be good. I'm never going to be good at calling people to come train. I just won't. I'm just not that guy. I'm like, train, good, come down.
Right, right, right,
Heather,
right.
my wife, is great at that, and
Yeah.
it's never gonna be the other way. So I'll do it if somebody calls me, I'm good enough to say, here's my wife. That's all I got to do.
Eh,
Who's gonna
but
do that?
delegation is an important aspect of our business for sure. Hey Kevin, he'll be in California for 2 weeks. He's coming up to work out and hang out with us. We could potentially arrange a drive down. It's only a couple hours. So maybe we go visit the pit. I just
Yeah.
want to take a minute too, and just thank you, because again, the whole purpose of this is for me to highlight people that have inspired me, motivated me, taught me something. And you've just been an inspiration. And watching you at the Super Show all these years, watching you train people, giving my son the opportunity to come and train at your school. Again, like I don't really have much to offer you, like you said with Tony Robbins. So you're that person that's giving me something so freely and so easily. And just our friendship has grown over the years, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you for everything you've done in the martial arts in general, and especially for me and for my son. So thank you so much.
Honor, honor, honor. And I love you, man. I love you, bro. I think about you all the time. Heather always talking about you guys because she follows you guys on Facebook and stuff. She's always bringing up you. So you are definitely part of the Pit Ohana, without a doubt.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That means a
All right.
lot. So,
All right.
hey, thank you. We're at an hour today. We'll have to do this again. We'll catch up again and maybe do another video. So, everybody
Anytime.
watching, thank you guys so much. We're gonna say goodbye to Mr. Hackleman. We'll see you soon, and I'll give you a call. Take care.
Thanks, brother.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Really appreciate everybody hanging in there. And if you have any questions, please just dump them in the chat, and I'll make sure Mr. Hackleman can come back and check that out. Otherwise, we'll be back next Monday. We'll be back Monday with Derek Frater, February 6th, I believe. So every Monday, 12 p.m., go and check out my YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram and, of course, here on Facebook. Have a great week, guys. Take care.